week 3, same outfit. The first week we talked about heel striking, forefoot striking, midfoot striking, or full foot striking. We talked about the difference of those. Last week we talked about the transitioning process from heel striking to forefoot striking. This week I just kind of want to talk about ways that you can do that to make it a little easier. Most of the breakdown comes from 2 things: someone's posture when they're running and their cadence. Okay, so when somebody comes in and when we watch them run, usually people's cadence is somewhere in the 160s. And the cadence is the number of times that your foot or feet strike the ground in a minute. So for the most part, the literature is going to say that you want 180 cadence. And that could be somebody that's a little bit shorter, a little bit taller. For the most part, we're trying to get into this range. At the very least, you want 175, and at the very most, you probably want 185. So 185 is going to be for your super short athlete. 175 might be for your super tall athlete. If you come in and your running cadence is in the upper 150s, switching over to this is really difficult. And so I mentioned in the first week that when you're changing your running form, it should feel different but not awkward. So if you have somebody that comes in, and let's say that they have 158 cadence, and then they're going to go out and we use either metronomes, or now you can just Google or look on Spotify songs that have whatever cadence you need, and that's really awesome because now you can just run to like Red Hot Chili Peppers or Katy Perry. There's a couple other ones that typically have about 180 beat cadence. But if we went from 158 all the way over to 180, you're going to feel like Speedy Gonzalez trying to do this, and it's not going to happen. So what you want to do, I suggest that people use a cadence. Sorry, not a cadence. They use a metronome. And so you would go out and figure out your cadence first. And the way you do that is you have a 60-second timer. You get going for a couple minutes, warm up, get into your normal rhythm, and then when your right foot hits the ground, start your watch and count your right feet, right? Your right foot strikes, and then at the end of that minute, when the timer stops, you go, oh, okay, I had 70, 75 or whatever like that. So, okay, that's 150. So you just double it, and that's your cadence. Okay, that's how you find it out. Once you find out your cadence, we need to start working you towards 180 beats a minute, because that is going to greatly reduce the actual impact forces, because your stride length is not as much. So to make this super, super simple, if you think about the impact forces that happen in running and walking, when you jump off the ground, when you propel yourself forwards, you're creating a bunch of potential energy. Your body goes up into the air, and now you're going to come back down, and that potential energy becomes kinetic energy when you hit the ground. That's where most of the damage comes from. If you're not jumping as far, you have less kinetic energy coming up the chain, right? So that's good. So when you have this 158, I usually say that we want to change by about 5 beats per minute. So we would just take a 158 and just go up to a 163, right? We don't need to actually, go up to all the way to that 180. 5 beats-ish is really where you start to feel that, like, okay, I can do this, but it still feels different, but it's not horribly awkward. And then once you're at, that, then you can move up again and again and again until you get into this 175 to 180-ish range, okay? Now, some tools that you can use a metronome, which is the most effective, because then you can literally be sitting there, you set it to whatever beat that you want, and you can actually just have your feet trying to hit the ground at that time. That is fun for about 30 seconds, and then you kind of get a little bit sort of annoyed with it, but it's really effective. So you might start off the run with 2 minutes of the metronome work, and then you can actually get songs that are whatever beat you need. They have a tempo for that. You can make an entire playlist like that if you want, with 5, 10, 20 songs, whatever you need. Or you can have one song that is your cadence song, and you're going to basically throw that in the playlist. So as you're running, you're gonna like, okay, you'll start off with the metronome stuff, then you'll go into the actual tempoed running, that one song, right? And then you'll have all, 3 or 4 or 5 other songs, and then put that same one back in, and your brain knows, okay, like I said, like a Katy Perry song, whatever that song is, comes on, okay, I have to run, and you're gonna work your technique for that 3 or 4 minutes, then back to the running again. And you're just gonna keep going on and off so that your body starts acclimating to the new cadence. And you're just gonna work up into that range. But if you're diligent to do this, you can pick this up pretty quick. If you're someone that only wants to do it like maybe once a week, it might take a little while. So I suggest having at least 2 runs a week where you're working on this. But just depending on what your goals are, you may or may not find the time for that. But those are the easiest ways to do that. Okay, so that's cadence. We've talked about transitioning. So remember June 2nd at Sciatica Middle School, we're going to do a running clinic if you want to get a little bit more detailed information about this. Have a good week.